Right now, I'm sitting on this rock. I can climb up onto behind my home and watch the sunset. And I'll show you now if you'd like to see. Here's the view I get when I climb out on this rock behind my home. And I have found a place where I can set my phone down here, so I don't have to be moving it around all the time when I'm talking. Um, and as I'm watching the sun go down, I've been getting a little emotional, actually. I've been getting emotional a lot lately, and like my mission is like not to cry on this video, but then I'm like, oh, if it happens, it's not the end of the world. Um, as I'm thinking about the sun coming up and the sun going down, I'm thinking about how everything is cyclical in life, and why I've been getting emotional is because even the healing journey is cyclical and has ups and downs. And many years ago, I was diagnosed with PTSD, and over the years, I've improved quite significantly. But and I guess I was hoping and wishing that it would always get better. That each passing year my symptoms would subside, and I would get better. And actually, I thought that I would never re-experience regression, and it's sort of silly considering that I was a biology professor, and everything I know about life says that everything in life is cyclical, and there's always ups and downs, and there's always times where things go backward and forward, so it's interesting. I had this very false impression that my PTSD symptoms would never go backward. And that's where I want to cry just thinking about it, because for the past few months, my PTSD symptoms have been very bad. And I'm regressing to coping mechanisms I haven't used in a decade. I haven't been this bad with my symptoms in about a decade. And that's hard for me. In me, the version of me that is working on going full-time into my business and helping people who've experienced trauma. There's that part of me that is like, feels like an imposter, that I've been struggling so much. And then that's when I've got to remind myself, well, this is part of the journey. And this idea that I had that I would never re-experience some of my worst PTSD symptoms again, that was false. And I always think that everything, I believe everything happens for a reason, and we can always use every hardship we experience in some productive way. And so I've been wondering, like, what is it that I can take from this experience of regression? And I think part of it is that I need to share that message that even when we have improvements in our life, in any aspect of our life, it just doesn't have to be their trauma healing, but there's always going to be regression. We can't always move forward. That's not how life works. I mean, every single biological system that's working normally has ups and downs, every single one. That's why I've been thinking a lot about it tonight with the sun setting, is that it's a reminder to me that everything in life goes up and it goes down. It's not always a straight up line. And actually in living systems, that's actually negative. It's actually problematic when something is always increasing. And because that's not how living systems work. And so part of the reason I'm coming on today is to share this message that no matter how much improvement you make on your trauma healing journey, there are going to be things that are going to sideline you. And for me, it was my full-time job. There were some things happening over the past few months that were very toxic for me, and it brought up a lot of feelings that I've had, from when I was young, that I don't matter, my feelings don't matter, my well-being doesn't matter, and that I'm insignificant. It's brought up a lot of these things. But more than that, like regularly for months and months on end, my stress has been very, very high. And we know that when we're experiencing stress in one aspect of our life, it's not like the rest of life says, okay, we're going to give you a break because you're having a hard time, and everything else just sort of settles down. No, it tends to happen that when you're experiencing stress in one aspect of your life, you're also experiencing stress in, well, many others. And of course, that is what has happened to me. And so compounding stress and just this constant excitation of my fight or flight response has just created an immense imbalance of my stress hormones and stress chemicals in my body and brain, and it has caused a relapse of my PTSD symptoms, and so, like, I have been extremely hypervigilant. I am just like trying to prepare for everything that can go wrh, not just with my job. So I'm like preparing, like, how am I going to leave, but what am I going to do in this scenario? But then because I'm on high alert with my job and my finances and my business, and I'm then starting to worry about everything. And that's the thing, when that hypervigilance, with the PTSD kicks in, it doesn't stay isolated to one aspect of my life. Like, I get worried about everything. So, like, for example, I'm not always quick to respond to people with text messages and emails. And so I don't expect others to respond to me right away, usually. Well, for example, just a few days ago, I messaged a friend I hadn't seen in months and wanted to get together with her, and she didn't respond to me right away. She didn't respond to me until the next day. And so immediately, like within that night, it was okay. But by the next morning, when I hadn't heard from her, the vigilance, I was like worried. I was like, maybe she died. Maybe I should go on to the internet and search her name and look for any obituaries. Like, that's where I went when I didn't hear from her. And then it went from, I thought she was dead, to, oh my God, if she's not dead, then she must be really angry at me. So then I started worrying about our last encounter, and did I miss any significant dates in her life? Like, did I miss a birthday? Did I miss her son's birthday? Did I miss this? What did I miss? What could she be angry about? And this is where my mind went. But this is what happens when I start getting really anxious. And if you don't understand, like, PTSD is an anxiety disorder. And so people often pick on me for being really high strung, and my anxiety can be really high. And, but that's why PTSD is a disorder. It is not normal, so my anxiety is not usually at a normal level, and it's much higher than what most people would experience normally. And this is what happens when my anxiety gets really high, is I just worry. I mean, I worry about everything that can go wrong. And because I'm hypervigilant. I'm also hyper aroused, so I'm sensitive to just everything. I'm sensitive to noise. I'm sensitive to just extremes, and like my startle response is really high, so I get really jumpy. So like I can be at my car in my parking lot where I live and be in like the trunk trying to organize things. This happened the other day. I saw somebody walking. I knew they were coming, but then I got focusing on the cleaning and organization, and they were walking past me. And even though my brain knew a couple minutes before they were coming my way, when they got near me, it still started me, and I jumped, and I even scared them because they knew I saw them coming. But I'm so jumpy, and you might be thinking, well, why is any of this a big deal? Well, what's happening is that when I start getting really anxious and I'm hyper aroused and hyper vigilant and I'm worrying all the time, I start reverting to old patterns to cope with the stress. I gotta put some gloves on. It's pretty cold out here tonight, so especially with the sun going down. So, some old patterns I've been reverting to have been like picking at my skin. And I know that there's, it's a disorder, and it's not extreme with me, but I do pick, like I'll pick for, half an hour, or I used to pick for hours at a time at imperfections in my skin, and I would pick at, like ingrown hairs and things like that until my skin would bleed. And sometimes I'm doing that, and I will have I could see on my legs and arms and just marks and like little bits of blood from where I picked so much. And that, even just admitting that right now, brings up a lot of shame for me, and it makes me want to cry again. Because it's embarrassing to me, and it's something I haven't done in many years. Sometimes over this past decade, once in a while I'll do it, but I can usually stop myself. But now I'm doing it for extended periods of time, and that's just something I haven't done in many, many years. I also have like obsessive compulsive tendencies, and I always have, and those symptoms have been very severe, in which you got to understand these are all anxiety based things that are happening. So again, the PTSD is underpinning all of this, and so my obsessive compulsive behaviors, they used to be really bad, with hand washing, and I just used to do a lot of things that I haven't fully regressed to. But like, for example, one thing that's gotten really bad is because I'm worrying so much about different things before I'm going to bed at night. One way that the OCD is coming out is me checking my door. I will check my door. I will move the lock multiple times. I will stare at, I will see that it's locked, and then I'll go up the stairs and I'll turn around and I'll stare at the lock and intently focus on making sure, is the lock perfectly horizontal, and I worry, is there any way people could jar it open, maybe the lock can come undone. I mean, it's so in saying this it brings up shame for me, because it's from a rational perspective, of course it's locked. I just felt it. I'm staring at it. I can see it's locked. But for me, when my anxiety is so high, I just obsess. And so then I count, and I'll force myself to count. Just, okay, allow yourself to count 3 and walk away. But then I'll count 3 and don't walk away and keep staring. And then I'll keep having to, and then I get upset that I can't even walk away from the door to even though I can see that it's locked, I'm still so scared of what if somebody comes in. And because of all the times that I have been sexually violated, I do sleep, even this is embarrassing, I sleep with a knife under one of my pillows. I can't sleep with it underneath the pillow, underneath my head, because just touching it makes me worried. But I'll have to make sure, okay, is my knife there? Am I going to be able to open it? Am I going to be able to access it if somebody breaks in at night? And this is really hard for me, because this level of worry and being so consumed with being attacked and violated again is just, and I don't want, a part of me doesn't want to hold back on crying, because I don't want to portray to you that there is something wrong with crying. There isn't. But part of me, why I know I need to stop myself from crying, is because I know myself that when I go down that path, crying brings me down a path that it's hard for me to get out of. So crying is something I usually have to stop myself from doing when I'm in these places, because it's it brings me into a rabbit hole that I can easily get stuck in. And so that's why I have to stop myself, not just because it's embarrassing for me to, put a video that's going to go out to the world, me crying on it. It's more than that. But the thing that's been affecting me most significantly lately is my overeating. And a few months ago, I hit a milestone in my weight loss journey that I have been trying to hit for like 15 years. I hit 135 pounds, and I was trying to hit that again for like 15 years. And, ever since I decided that I wanted to lose weight, when I hit, my high of 222 pounds, I set 135 pounds all those years ago as my weight goal. And here a few months ago, I hit it. And around that same time is when my PTSD symptoms really spiraled out of control. And here I've been binging again regularly. And if you don't know, I've struggled with a very severe eating disorder for many years in my life, bulimia. At its worst, when I was a teenager, I would binge and purge 8 to 12 times a day. It was really bad. And now, I still regularly binge, and that's hard for me. But what's been happening lately is something that is part of a very old pattern. Is I've been stopping at different stores and picking up desserts. And so 3 years ago, it's over 3 years ago now, I made a commitment that I would adopt a vegan diet, and that I've been working to progress to a whole food, plant-based diet. And, but what I've been doing is, not really caring, that I made that commitment to myself, and stopping at stores and picking up a piece of cake and ice cream, and stopping at multiple places. I get so worried about what people are going to think if I buy a piece of pizza and an ice cream cone. And I definitely can't let people see me buy an ice cream cone, a piece of pizza, and go and buy a cinnamon bun. So what I've been doing is going to one store and buying like the ice cream cone with pizza, and then I'll go to another store and buy the cinnamon bun or piece of cake, because I don't want people to judge me on how much I'm eating. And it's really terrible. So I'm being it's very sneaky, and being very mindful that I can't do this pattern at the stores next to my home, because I don't want people to see me, because of course I get out to my car and I don't even wait to get home to eat this stuff. I'm eating it in my car, and then once I'm, done eating in my car at one place, I'll go to another place and eat in my car. So these are patterns that cause me a lot of shame. And, and some people say to me, well, people eat like this all the time, Stephanie. People eat pizza all the time, and ice cream all the time, and cake all the time, and you eat really healthy otherwise. And that is true. A lot of people eat this stuff, and I do eat very healthy. So, I do mainly eat a whole food plant-based diet. So I eat a lot of salads and whole grains and things, but the fact of the matter is I have made a commitment to myself that I was not going to eat that way. That those eating patterns are part of self-destructive patterns that I had for most of my life. And the reality is when I'm in those modes where I'm driving around to different places and eating like that, I don't give a damn about my health. I don't give a damn about my well-being. And that's why it's so problematic for me, is because I am in a place where I don't care about my health and well-being. And that is really hard for me. And I'm so scared of going backward. Here I hit this milestone, and I keep having to think about the version of me that was morbidly obese, the version of me that had high cholesterol and sleep apnea because of the weight, the version of me that was always tired and in physical pain because of the weight, and I can't go back. But at the same time, for the past 3 days in a row, I have done this. For the past 3 days in a row, including today, I stopped at different stores and picked up junk and gorged myself. And And that's hard for me. And so I have been having to practice a lot of compassion for myself and realizing that I'm doing my best to survive. And even though these are old patterns that I was hoping I was done with, the reason I'm turning to them is because I know they work for me. There's comfort in turning to something I know. And so I'm coming on today to share not only that times of regression are common when we're healing, but that it's really important for us to practice self-compassion when we get into these modes, because, and what I've had to do is really, remind myself what I know about the human body and the brain and all these chemicals that are out of balance, is that the chemicals in my body and brain are out of balance right now. And that is what is happening when I am on a high alert. The reason, so with PTSD, it causes an imbalance in chemicals in the brain, and that's why the fight or flight response is over exaggerated, and you stay at this high level of fight or flight for extended periods of time because there's an imbalance of chemicals. And so when I am overeating, for example, these are ways that my body is trying to, and my mind is trying to get me to get my chemicals in my brain back into balance. And that's why I have been having to work closely with my therapist during this time, and with the medications that I'm on. I've had to increase my medication. I've had to take an additional medication to help me with the panic attacks and the baseline anxiety that's just so high, much higher than normal. And so, and even that over the years has caused a lot of shame in me that I have needed to take medicine to control my emotions, and which is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous that I felt this way because I know that my body and mind are dysregulated. I know the hormones and neurotransmitters in my brain, they are dysregulated, and medication helps to regulate them. So I don't know where we ever got this from, because I know I'm not the only person that feels this way, this shame. Because even my therapist, when I say, oh, I don't want to take more medicine, she gets angry. She's like, where does this come from? She gets so angry that people feel this way. We don't think anything about people needing insulin, for diabetes or other kinds of disorders, but when it comes to the brain, we think there's something wrong. We need chemicals to regulate it. And she's like, I don't get it. But I think a lot of it is societal. There's a lot of shame that falls on people that have mental illness and need a medication to cope, yet we don't place any shame. People will tell me it's no big deal that I eat, ice cream and cookies and chips, to regulate essentially my emotions. But, those same people many times would think there's an issue if you need to pop a pill to regulate chemicals. And so it's what society tells us is acceptable and unacceptable. So I know I didn't dream this shame up on my own. I know it's coming from somewhere. And so the other thing I want to say is, if you experience these times of dysregulation, it is really important that you talk to a medical professional, and especially if you start having suicidal thoughts. And that's something I have to be really mindful of when I get in these moments, is that I was suicidal for many years of my life, and luckily much of those feelings have been kept at bay during this time of relapse of my symptoms, but that's largely because of the medication, and bringing me back into balance, because those times of greatest suicidal ideation, I either wasn't taking medication or I wasn't regularly talking with a healthcare professional. I wasn't with a therapist that could prescribe medications and oversee my symptoms and really alter my medications based on my symptoms. And so that's really important, is that when you start self-destructing, and when you have thoughts to self-destruct in the most significant way, you know, thoughts of death and dying, it is so important to talk to a medical professional. You know, even though I know a lot about trauma healing, I know a lot about the brain and body, I am not a licensed clinician. And it's important for me to work with somebody who understands, you know, medication and really significant signs of stress and medications that can help regulate that, until, you know, I can get back to baseline. And I'm still far from baseline right now. And the other thing I want to say, though, is even if you are working with a healthcare professional and you are taking medication is not enough. You know, I'm topped out with 2 different medications on the maximum dose I can take right now, and my symptoms are high. Hence why I've binged and went seeking out, you know, really crappy food 3 days in a row, is because medication isn't enough. There's more that needs to be done. And I've still been doing a lot. Like, I went for a walk jog this morning. I went for a walk this evening and listening to my books. But, you know, I even took a nap. You know, I took a nap today. And all these things help, but it's still hard. And so that's what I want to say too, is all these things, these messages I want to share, is that so there's not going to be just one thing that's going to get you out of these moments when you regress. It's just, you got to come with it, with everything you can. And that's what I've been trying to do, is to attack. It looks like a new video has started, is attack it from every place I can. And yeah, the phone just said size limit reached, so I'm probably gonna have to do something to merge these 2 together. So I know for future reference, if I do a video over 25 minutes, my phone says you have reached your size limit and a new video has begun. So I have now reached a new experiment, and I'll have to try to figure out how to piece these 2 together. But anyways, where I was going before I went to a new video is you got to come at these moments of regression with multiple tools. Like, and that's why you've got to build your arsenal. Like, all the time, you've got to be coming up with ways that you can handle when life just brings so much to bear, because there's not going to be just one thing that's going to work. And so here I am taking 2 different medications to regulate myself. I am making sure I'm resting, I'm making sure I'm exercising, I'm making sure I'm listening to positive audio, I'm keeping in touch with friends and family, I'm doing everything I can, and I'm still dysregulated. I'm still needing to eat, to self-soothe. And that's why the self-compassion has been really important, because I got to remind myself that this is evidence that I'm really struggling. And I'm really struggling. And so I am in survival mode right now. I'm doing the best I can. And so when you get in these moments, just remind yourself that you're also doing the best you can to survive. And that when the sun goes down, we remind ourselves that this means there's a new day ahead of us, a new beginning, and a chance to start over. And eventually, you know, because everything is cyclical, these periods where life is really hard and our symptoms are really bad, that we need to remember that it's going to end, because that is the great thing about life being cyclical, is everything will turn around and be better, and that helps knowing it. And so I wish you well always, and I'll leave you with my view. Can you see my sunset that I have here? And so again, I wish you well, and bye for now.